everybody. Welcome to Called Up the Prospects podcast. I am Chris Peters of FloHockey, joined as always by my partner in crime and co-host, Cam Robinson. And Cam, we are 1 week away from junior hockey. How are we feeling?
I am excited, Chris. I am sick and tired of watching D-1 tape or Holinka tape or last year's U18s. Let's get it going. Let's get the season going so we can start assessing these kids post-off-season training for the most part.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about these 2026 guys. We're finally going to get new tape on them. We're finally going to see how they progressed, who's bigger, who's stronger, who's ready, and who's taking charge in this draft season. And it starts next week. The USHL Fall Classic is going to kick us off on the highest levels here with the Fall Classic on Wednesday. You've got a great matchup in the nightcap of that one with Muskegon and Waterloo in a matchup of the Clark Cup final. We're going to talk about some of the draft prospects you can watch in the USHL this year. Also on Thursday night, QMJHL, OHL, they get things kicked off. They're going to be on FloHockey this year. You got the Newfoundland Regiment ready to go. Their first
Great
game,
tarps.
defending champion Moncton. On Friday night, you're going to see the London Knights raise their Memorial Cup banner. There's so many great things happening on FloHockey and in the junior hockey season. And also the WHL will be starting too. So there's a lot of things to watch, but many of the top prospects are current guys that have been drafted are currently at their rookie camps and will be in part of training camp. So we won't see them for a little bit. So that's why we're going to focus much more on the 2026 NHL draft prospects. And we're going to talk right now, Cam, about the USHL. So the USHL is going to kick us off next Wednesday at the Fall Classic. Lots of scouts will be in attendance. The top guys in this league this year, draft-wise, at least heading into the year, and this will always change. You've got Tynan Lawrence as the number one guy with a bullet, top 5 potential pick, top 10 for sure. Then you've got guys like Blake Zielinski, Jack Hextall, great Holinka Gretzky Cup performances, won that with the USA. Those guys might be some of the secondary players that we're talking about. And you think about other secondary players in the past, like Shane Pinto and Matthew Nyes. Those guys, they're not secondary players anymore, are they?
No.
So it'll always be interesting to see. But let's focus on the Lawrence, because he is the guy that I think most people will be tracking most closely in the USHL this season.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like you said, he is the shiny toy for the league that they get to parade out every night, which is unfortunately they don't get to parade him out at the Fall Classic though, right? With the injuries going to hold him out of that action. So I know there's going to be a whole lot of scouts and assistant GMs that are going to be disappointed not to get eyes on him early to set that baseline. Yeah, we had the Holinka, but league play baseline too. So that's a bit disappointing too. But you know, what this kid accomplished as a draft -1 last year, he's super young for this class. You know, he scored 25 goals, a point a game. He was the MVP of the playoffs. Like, he has ticked a lot of boxes already, but it's play in the middle of the ice, right? That's going to be a separator in a class at the top end that is littered with wingers and defensemen. You know, his stock is going to be elevated purely by being that really mature, intelligent, skill-driven pivot.
That is a great point. I mean, I think positionality obviously matters when we think about the way this draft is going to shake out. There aren't a ton of premier centers. A lot of the best players in this draft are, at least at forward, are wings primarily. So that creates an opportunity for a Tynan Lawrence to get in there. Obviously, a lot of defensemen as well. But I think if you're an NHL team, you're looking at those centers and you're saying, who's the guy? And I think there's a lot of belief in what he can accomplish this year. He's going to be the captain of the team. He's going to be the offensive focal point. He'll be the guy that's getting all the toughest matchups every single night. And it's fighting through that adversity and being a dominant player. That'll help him maybe reach that top 5 status. Aside from the positions, what is a reasonable expectation for, what do you think the scouts want to see to say, this guy actually, yeah, he's in that top 5 conversation?
Well, I think he just has to play his game and take the steps, just the incremental improvements throughout the season. So, you know, we know the offensive game is dual threat. He has a great release. He has great vision. He can handle the puck well. Like I mentioned, mature, right? Defensively, really responsible in his own end, knows where to be on the ice to pick up matchups and all those things. So you just want to see him continue to evolve, get stronger, maybe even grow an inch or two. That wouldn't hurt. He's not small, but you know, you tack on a little bit, now you can look at him as like, this could be a true number 1 center down the road. So just playing, showing that hard skill and taking steps, staying healthy. And then, you know, you want to see an uptick. You want to see him hit 30 goals. You want to see him break 60 points in a full season. And maybe, hey, who knows, like get an invite to Canada's World Junior Camp or something like that.
Yeah, how about it? I mean, this is a guy that is definitely going to have a lot of eyeballs on him. Was it the Hlinka Gretzky Cup? He might not have pointed up, but I think the buzz from the scouts coming out of it is that they saw a lot of the things that they wanted to see from him, and now it's
Yep.
just a matter of taking that next step, which we'll be watching. But two guys who really I think vastly improved their stock, Zelensky and Hextall at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup.
Big time. Yeah.
Zelensky leads the team in scoring, ends up having great tournament. They win the tournament for the first time since 2003, or it's been a long time. Jack Hextall 3 points in that championship game against Sweden. So you've got Hextall with Youngstown, Zelensky with the Des Moines Buccaneers. I mean, these are two guys that are going to be offensive focal points for their team. Just in general, I think of those two, Zelensky looks like the guy that has the better chance at being a first round pick. But do you see that potential for them? And do you think that there's, what maybe are they going to have to do to be that guy? As we saw, like Riker Lee, Vaclav Nestrasil last year, getting into first round contention with good long runs and good performances last season in the USHL.
And you know what really drove those guys up into that first round were the flashes, right? They weren't perfect players throughout the year, but they flashed high-end stuff, which now a team can justify taking them in the 20s. And so that's what we're going to need to see. Zelensky, I think, flashed that quite a bit at the Hlinka. Now he's got to go back home. He's got to be able to show that shot off that we did see at the Hlinka, but we didn't get to see so much as a rookie with in the USHL last year. So if he could pop 25 goals, I think that would go a very long way for him. For Hextall, he's got to shoot the puck. He's got to shoot the puck a whole lot more. We know his playmaking is good. We know he sees the ice really well, but he's got to be able to add that element to his game so that defenders don't sag off and let him shoot and give him lanes knowing that he's probably not going to take it anyway. So again, it's got to be flashing those high-end upsides where a kid like Nestor Silly had the size and the handles to really get people excited. These guys won't have the size element, so they really have to showcase that they're like, hey, we could be top 6 players long term, or else, like you said, they're probably more destined for early day 2, which isn't the end of the world either.
Right, exactly. And we're also going to just really quickly touch on the under 18 team. They will also be at the USHL Fall Classic. So you've got the NTDP group, top guys from there. It depends on who you talk to. It's another year where I don't think that we have that guy that's going to really pop in the top half of the first round for this team. No. But guys like Mikey Burchild, Casey Mutrin, both got called up to the under 18 team, played in the under 18 Worlds last year. Those are guys that are going to be watched pretty closely. One other guy, Cam, everybody knows who Matt Cullen is. Great long career in the NHL. Well, his son Wyatt entered the NTDP at about 5'8". He returned for his U18 season at about 6'1" and about 25 pounds heavier. That is a huge change. I know that a lot of people liked Wyatt Cullen, but it was like, yeah, but is he going to grow? He grew. Now let's see if the game translates. But, am I right in the read at this point in terms of, it may not be, as a whole, the greatest and most exciting, similar to what we saw from last year, or is there any rays of sunshine there?
No, I think I thought that Mutrin and Burchild were fine at the U18s as underage. Well, I guess they weren't underagers, but as D-1 guys last year, I thought that they were both fine, especially Burchild, playing limited minutes, put up good points. But yes, this is another year where we're not expecting. Remember, like 2019, was that the year that they had 5 or 6 guys right in the top 15? Like when are those days coming back? Although I do hear their next crop coming up is looking stronger. But I just made a video about Joey Cullen, the younger Cullen brother, too. And how he's one of the top 2010s, maybe the best puck handler in the U.S. in his age group too. So Matt Cullen, he's got good genes there.
Yeah, he does, and the boys are starting to really make some noise. And I think Wyatt is a guy that a lot of teams are going to be keeping a close eye on with that growth. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit about the QMJHL because they will start on Thursday night. They will have the first game ever on FloHockey will be Moncton versus Newfoundland. Newfoundland on that Thursday night. Really excited for the regiment. Great to see, great logo. They were a lot of the players from the Katie Bathurst Titan are now over there in Newfoundland. They added some players, including a local young man for the draft pick. But when we talk about the Q for the draft, the name that you are going to hear most frequently is Xavier Villeneuve. He is a 5'10" defenseman. When obviously a lot of teams are like, okay, 5'10" defenseman. This guy can handle the puck. This guy can make plays. This guy was the defensive rookie of the year in his first season. He was the defenseman of the year in the whole Q last season. He won a gold medal at the under-18 Worlds. We saw him there. You want to talk about flashes, Cam? You want to see those little pops? This kid's got it, doesn't he?
This kid's all pop. He's all pop. Like I at the U18s last year, that was obviously my first time. I don't live in Quebec. First time seeing him live and in person, and I loved what he was able to do. He was breaking ankles on walking that line. He was, coming down the wall. He was doing all sorts of flashy stuff: the handles, the shot, the vision. I mean, he's not an electric skater straight line, but he has that agility and he has that puck control that we see from Quinn Hughes and Lane Hudson and those guys that can really make magic happen with the puck on their stick in the offensive zone. Not big, not necessarily a plus player in the defensive zone, which is why we're not looking at him as like, hey, this guy could like contend up in the top 5. But holy smokes, if you want to take a bet on a kid who has tons of offensive upside and IQ, this is definitely one to take a swing on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see his games. By the way, he's playing for Blainville-Boisbriand. They
Stacked.
are a wagon this year, absolute wagon. They have got, Justin Carbonneau, Bill Zonin. They've got a number of players that they should be the favorite. We're going to talk about them a little bit later. That is a team that is going to be special to watch. And a big reason for it is the young man on the blue line, Xavier Villeneuve. So definitely know that name. Couple other names to keep in mind for the QMJHL. Mm-hmm. One guy last year, he made the move from the USHL to the Q this year, Olivers Mernieks. He was with Sioux City last year. He ends up coming to St. John and the Sea Dogs. They've had some really tremendous success with Latvian players. He's got size. He's played at a World Juniors already. Didn't have a tremendous offensive season last year, but I think there's some real maturity in that game. He's a player I'm excited to see. And then also the goalie, William Lassell from Rimouski. He was the rookie of the year in the Q last year. He was also, didn't play in the Memorial Cup, didn't play in the playoffs a ton. Yeah. Not a big guy, but definitely good on the technique, has a lot of potential. So I think that's another one, but anything else? I think the Q in general, there's going to be a number of players to keep a close eye on. Those are just a few of the guys to talk about, but it's really going to be about Villeneuve, who I think, has a real chance to it's similar to how his teammate Justin Carbonneau did last year, and Caleb Desnoyers for Moncton last year, really just staking, planting a flag a little bit for the Q in the draft order. So we'll see where that goes. Anything else on that front? I think we could talk for a lot of different things. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, Blainville, that's going to be must-see TV this year. They're gonna put up some big numbers.
Yeah, I can't wait. They loaded up. Adding Zonin in the offseason was Pittsburgh Penguins first-round draft pick. That's a statement. That's a statement of a team that's saying we're going for it this year, and we're going for it with everything we have, and getting Carbonneau back, assuming that he doesn't make the Blues out of camp, which I don't think he will, but still, it's like he did sign. So there's always that.
But not losing him to school, that was big, yeah.
That was big. That was really big. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was one of those guys that was definitely considering certain things. Mm-hmm. All right. So the Q, really excited about what's happening there. There's going to be a lot of players that return from camps and everything there. Let's move over to the OHL. And the OHL has a lot going for it in the draft season, as it so often does. But this year, it's probably going to be a lot about the two big forwards at the top of their draft class. And you've got Ryan Roobroeck, you've got Ethan Belchetz. Roobroeck is a late birth date. Belchetz is a true under 18, a former number 1 overall pick in the OHL draft. These two guys have a lot of pop. We've seen them both. Cam, when you see guys of their size play the way that they do, that OHL or NHL scouts are going to be watching very, very closely.
Oh, without a question, right? And Belchetz tore it up at the Holinka. Roobroeck was fine at the U18s last year as a draft -1 at the tail end of that season. He was fine. but yeah, I think all eyes are kind of on those two, and then you get into Chase Reed, and there's going to be a number of good players in the O this year for sure. But no, I'm very interested to see how teams evaluate and how these two big men, how they take steps forward, right? Because Roobroeck's 6'5", 227, or Belchetz 6'5", 227, Roobroeck 6'4", 215. Like, we are not talking about small kids here. These guys have the ability at this level, at the junior level, to physically dominate, and that is what teams are going to want to see. And Belchetz, he thrives down low, right at the net front, along the wall, coming off the wall. He's got the handles. I mentioned it before that I had one scout say that he looks a lot like James Van Riemsdyk did at the same age, who I believe went second overall in his draft class. So yeah, Roobroeck has the C tag. He has center next to his name on Elite Prospects, but I haven't seen him play any center at the U18s. I don't think I saw him play any center last year. I think he's a winger. So now you're looking at two wingers where, Roobroeck he's almost eligible for last year's draft, right? Cut like a week away from being in the 25 class. So he's very, very old for this class, whereas Belchetz is much younger. So again, there's going to be a lot of things that teams have to weigh when assessing these two.
No question about it. And, I think Roobroeck, the interesting thing about him is, yes, he is older, but, he has been a highly productive player in that league. 40 goals last
40
season.
Goals. Yeah.
Also, as a U17 in his rookie season, 51 points, 28 goals as a rookie, then follows that up with, that 41 goal season last year and putting up 87 points. And this is a player that I really do think is going to continue to push himself forward. I think the hockey sense is there. I think there's a lot to like. And he's going to be the guy, and you talk to scouts, there are going to be some that have Belchetz first. There are going to be some that have Roobroeck first. But typically they're going to have one of those guys in their mix for the top five. And it'll just be a matter of, do some of these defensemen jump up and push those guys down? Or do we, how many teams, especially in this draft class, there isn't a ton of size outside of those guys. Like, there are bigger players, but they're who's bigger than Belchetz? I mean, really,
nobody.
That's the thing where the argument comes in. But those are going to be the guys that I think are followed closely. And we're going to talk about them a little bit more at the end of the show as well. When you have to pick one, who do you pick between those two guys? You guys think them out amongst yourselves. I think Cam and I'll continue to think about it for a bit as well. But I also want to talk about one of the top defensemen in the league this year. And he's a player that I find incredibly fascinating. And you ask any scout, they're like, this kid just came out of nowhere last year and really popped. And that's Chase Reed. American-born player, was started last season in the North American League as a fine defenseman. Like he wasn't even playing huge minutes when he started, and then he started trending. And Sioux Greyhounds were like, "Hey, we could use a little bit of what that guy has," and they call him in. Chase Reed is, to me, so we don't because he's a late 07. We didn't see him at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. USA had initially invited him to the Under-18 Worlds last year, did not ultimately decide to bring him, much to the chagrin of a lot of scouts there. He is a December 30th birth date, by the way. He is 6'2". He is a right shot defenseman from Michigan. 40 points in 39 games last year for Sioux once he made the move. I mean, how does a guy go from the Bismarck Bobcats, 12 points in 18 games, to being a number one defenseman in the OHL seemingly overnight?
Yeah. Wild, right? Coming out of the null and to make that step, and then to put over a point a game from the blue line, 6'2", righty, like he check. Now, you have to just have in the back of your mind, was it just a hot run? Was it just a good stretch of games, because he doesn't have that historic production, that pedigree that teams are looking for. So I think it's going to be a prove it again season now for a lot of teams and scouts as they watch him play. If he comes out of the gate and all of a sudden it's like, 3 points in 7 games, 8 points in 20 games, and it's like, okay, the stock's going to plummet. But from the tape I've seen of his, kid's got game. He has got skills. He has length. The skating's good. that, this is another one who could be a sneaky top 10 pick. Like if he has another season where he pushes 55, 65 points, I think that he's going to be right in that conversation with the Dax and Rudolph, with the Carson Carrolls and all those guys too.
Yeah, I mean that we're going to get to those guys soon, because that's really the group that he's going to be competing with for upper end draft position. Want to focus on one more guy before we get out of here, and it's a big time import ad. There were a couple others recently as well, but this one was one of the earlier ones, and that's Adam Novotny, who signed with the Peterborough Petes after playing last year 41 games in Czech's First Division Pro League. 3 points. Usually that's how it goes. The 17 and 18-year-olds do not produce in that league. It's pretty rare to see it happen. But now he's coming to play in the OHL. He is a 6'1", almost 200-pound winger, who does have, good international experience. He played at the World Juniors for Czechia last year, played at the Under-18 Worlds in a leading role for Czechia last year. This is a really exciting ad for Peterborough, isn't it?
Huge. I talked to him last year because there was rumors that he was going to come over to Peterborough like midway through the season last year. And he quickly discounted that. But, we've had an opportunity, Chris, to see him live a few times now, right? Going Holinka, U18s, World Juniors, right? So it's nice that we have a nice book on him already. He's a heavy player, right? Like he plays sturdy hockey at whatever he is, 6'1", 200 pounds. He has good skills. Like this is a big pull for the Petes for sure. You have to expect that, he had 40 plus games of pro experience last year too, like to bring that mature game into junior hockey. Like I do have pretty high expectations for him this year.
Yeah, I do too. And it's just like those guys, there's just not a lot of room for them to move. There's not a lot of ice time to go around when they're playing pro hockey over there. This is a guy that needs reps. This is a guy that needs a top 6 role. This is a guy that's going to deliver for you. And I think that this is going to be a great ad for both Peterborough and the OHL. So don't forget, QMJHL, OHL, you can watch on FloHockey starting next weekend as the season gets rolling. We cannot wait for those leagues. Get that annual subscription now. Get all of these leagues, the USHL, the OHL and the Q, all the pro leagues, the AHL and ECHL. There's so much to get. So sign up for the annual subscription. If you pay for the annual, you're basically saving 7 months of that. That's the value. The value is insane. And you get all this hockey that we're talking about here. All right, now we're going to talk about a little bit of hockey that you won't be able to see on Flo, but is important for the NHL draft, and that is the WHL. And very excited to watch this group, and it's all about the defenseman, Cam. This is your region. This is your home. This is where you live. This is what these are the guys that you have in your backyard. It's not all only defensemen, because there's also a very, very exciting, talented forward in this group, but let's, I already know where you're going with the first one. Let's talk about Ryan Lynn. I know you love him. How much do you love him?
West Coast, best coast, baby. That's right. Yeah, Ryan Lynn. I love this kid. I think he's tremendous. I think his defensive habits are advanced, supreme for his age and this level. I think he's got plus skating. I think he has a high end IQ on him too. And you put all those things together with hard work. Yeah, he's not 6'2" or 6'3", and that's why he's not going to contend for like number 2. But I think that any team that is lucky enough to pull this kid in the top 8 is going to have themselves like a stud for a decade plus. So I'm a huge fan of him. 50 plus points last year for the Giants. I expect he's going to come in and just have a monster year there too. The Giants are going to be a pretty good team again. I think that he could, replicate or beat that while just continuing to build on those defensive habits, just smothering rush defense that he has.
Yeah, I think that's always find the balance, right? Find the balance. Can you do both? And if he doesn't put up 80 points, it's not a disappointment. That'd be insane.
No,
that'd be an insane total. And if he's putting up 50 to 60 points again, and he's stopping the way that he can stop, then that's a huge boost for his team and also his draft stock, because you have to be able to do both. He's not as he's not as big as some of the big defensemen that we'll talk about over the course of the year, but he is super cerebral, and that is going to go a long way. So really good there. What about up front? I mean, I think there's really one clear guy in the WHL that has really popped in terms of his offensive creativity, skill level, the opportunity to be an explosive player. Well, besides that one that is not in
left.
the WHL this year.
Yes, that would be one Mathis Preston. Yes. Again, I think I'm going to like this. I think I'm going to like this draft class because there's a few kids like the next one we're going to talk about too. I'm going to say that I love this kid too. But Preston, like, as far as draft eligibles in the West, like nobody touches him on pure skill, right? Like elite handles and creativity, can just make things happen out of nothing, can handle it in a phone booth. You see him in shootouts and stuff like that. And he's got that heel popping up as he's going forehand, backhand, and really speed driven, loves to push the pace too. I think he's going to pop. I think he's going to put up big numbers. I remember watching last year, checking in on some guys, Berkeley Catton and stuff, and getting a look at him and been like, holy smokes, this Mathis Preston kid is good. And so I'm expecting him to take another step forward. We saw him at the Hlinka, not a ton of points, but I thought he was their most dangerous player throughout that tournament too. So yeah, I'm expecting, 100. I could see triple digits out of Preston this year.
Yeah. I mean, and hey, it very well could be his team, right? It very well could be his show. So yeah, I mean, that will be interesting to see because we talked about, that AHL CHL rule and how that could potentially impact one Berkeley Catton. And now it's either
not coming
Kraken or Spokane. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So those are the two options for him. All right. Well, let's talk about the next guy on your list then, because one, he's got a great name, and two, he is a very, very good player.
Daxon Rudolph. It rolls off the tongue. Former first overall pick in the West too for PA for the Raiders there. He's long and lean. Like, I think he's only 6'2", a righty, but like just when you see him out there, it seems like he covers a lot of space with his limbs, and I really like his stick. Another one who can surf across and really kind of shut down rush attempts before they even get going. I think that his game is really just kind of just like plus across the board, but maybe lacking the like super dynamic qualities that a couple of these other D-men have at the top of this class, but like steady Eddie. Like he's another one that you're probably going to be, a team's going to be fortunate enough to get him in that 7, 8, 9, 10, even, 10 to 12 zone, that you could just see him just being someone who could play on a top pair or be like a real driver on a second pair long-term and kill a bunch of penalties for you, maybe play on a second power play unit. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's just not overly creative and dynamic, but I mean, he showed that previously as like a Bantam player. So maybe that's still bubbling under the surface that might come popping out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there is so much to like about where he's going. Like that's the thing. And we look at the upside of these players, and I think you look at a lot of these WHL defensemen, and another one, Carson Carroll's another guy that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on in this class. The WHL, certainly there's a lot of defensemen. There is a lot of defensemen that are going to make a significant impact in this draft. And a lot of them seem to be out West this year. And even the guy who's no longer in the WHL, Keaton Verhoff, is another one where it's, so that's a big one. Another guy that I'm just going to mention too, an interesting story to follow. It's not super frequent that a player leaves the national team development program and then goes to goes to the major junior in the middle. Like if they're for their what would be their U18 year. I know guys like Emerson Edom have done it. Some we've seen Werenski and Hannafin go to college. We've seen Cullen Potter go to college. But we haven't seen many guys go that way and then ultimately have success. The guy that we'll be watching for that this year is a young man by the name of JP Hurlburt, who we talked about a few weeks ago. He did have a hat trick in his first exhibition game with Kamloops. So welcome to the show in the dub. But it will be interesting to watch because I know in years past, with the exception of guys like Edom, who still ended up becoming a first-round draft pick, some people view this maybe as a lateral move because the NTDP plays college teams and they're under 18 year. But if there is one thing that's going to happen now, Hurlburt, a lot of people are going to be watching how this goes in this new landscape. No question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's
all right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You go. I actually do want to hear what you have to say about this.
But it's just interesting because I've had he's been on my radar for a couple of years because he's out of Texas, right? And he was torching torching it out there in Texas like for a while. And so like going back to like 22, 23, some people were like, hey, watch out for this kid in Texas who's coming up. And then he's going to go to the program. And then there was all this like question all summer. Where's he going to be? He's like not on any roster. Kamloops thinks they're going to get him, but they don't have him yet. Like he's committed to Michigan the year after. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to see top line minutes. I think he's going to put up a bunch of points, but he's like this like awkward size. He's not big. He's fairly light. He has lots of skill, but it's like you'll have to envision the roll down the line is like, is he good enough to be like a true top 6 wing at his size and skill set? So he's got some mountains to climb yet, but I do like him in Kamloops. I think that's going to be a pretty good spot for him.
Yeah, I think it is going to be really interesting to track, just because, you think about the guys that do. He didn't get called up to the under 18 team last year. It wasn't because they had an inkling that he was going this way. It was more, like on merit, they just didn't have it. And so, that's where it's going to go. By the way, the reason that JP Hurlburt got on my radar, Cam, is because I was informed that he had basically the cage visor setup that Team Iceland had in D2, the Mighty Ducks. And then I saw a picture and I was like, all right, I like your style.
That's my boy.
So yeah, Gunnar Stahl style right there.
Right.
So those are the intangibles you can't really track in a draft. Normally we would have our called up challenge right now, but we're short on time because we got so much to get to when it comes to the NHL draft. So we're gonna buzz through that and then skip right to our regular segments, because we have some really interesting conversations to be had here in our Beyond Belief segment. And of course, this is where we offer each other a statement and the other decides whether it's beyond belief or believable. And there's a lot of debate to be had here in our little thing. So we're going to keep that theme with the big OHL forwards, which we will talk about multiple times in the show because I'm fascinated by each of them. And I start this off with you. Ryan Roobroeck will be the first OHL player drafted this year.
I mean, it's absolutely believable, right? It's totally believable. Like you rattled off all the things. 40 goals last year. He scored 28 the year before that. All those things. But I'm gonna go and say beyond belief, just as an early prognostication. I have a feeling that Ethan Belchetz is going to just smash his way into being the first OHLer off the board this year. I think that is a real likelihood because he has a physical edge without question. He has a slight size advantage over Roobroeck, but he has a physical edge where I think he plays with more ferocity. How about that? With a little more jam, with a little more ill intent than a guy like Roobroeck, who plays maybe a more skill game with that wicked release. So I'm gonna go ahead early on here in September and say beyond belief and say Roobroeck won't be the first one off the board.
I mean, I think I'll save the rest of my answer for our next segment, because we may end up on opposite sides of that one, and
there we
I
go.
think that'll be fun to go a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I really do think that it's certainly, to me, it's very believable, but I think there's a lot of validity to what you said about Belchetz, and I think talking to people over the course of time, how much those teams value that size, even if it's an inch taller and 15 pounds heavier. It's a big difference when you get to 6'4" to 6'5" and all that stuff. So it's always fascinating to see how that factors in. All right, I leave this next one to you, my friend.
All right, the Armada will be an unstoppable force in the QMJHL this season. That they will just we'll ask the question: how did they lose? Not how did they win?
Absolutely believable. It's something I talked about before. This is a wagon. And it's a team with a lot of balance as well, which I think is really important in any junior team. When you could really load up your forwards and not pay attention to your D, and it could completely crater your chances. We talk a lot about the fact that hockey is a strong link game and that there are a lot of strong links on this team. You've got one of the best puck moving defensemen in all of Canadian junior hockey with Villeneuve there, especially in terms of the guys that are going for the draft this year. You've got Justin Carbonneau likely coming back likely captaining the team and making a significant impact. Bill Zonin added to the team. You've got Spencer Gill on the back end, who's drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers. You've got Matteo Nobert, a very gifted playmaker who can get pucks to some of these higher end goal scorers. So they have a number of drafted prospects, but I think it also comes down to when you're looking at a team like the Armada, how many veteran players do they have? And that's where they're going to make a difference. They don't have a ton of 17-year-olds. They don't have really, I don't know if they have any 16-year-olds that are in their plans for this season. So they're going with this older team, which I do think helps. They also have really good goaltending. Both their goalies this year are drafted prospects. Jacob Malota, who will likely be Czechia's goalie at the World Juniors this year. He is probably going to start games for them. Nashville Predators pick, Arseny Radkov, Belarusian, Canadians draft pick, with a little bit more runway. Absolute wagon. Cam.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be, it should be silly. There'll be some teams that can hang with them, but with Moncton not having Caleb right off the hop too, it's going to set them back as well. So no, I'm with you. I think the Armada are going to be taking the cake in the queue this year.
All right. Well, we shall see. I mean, that's the thing is like, if you did all that work and it doesn't pan out, then you're just like, I don't know what else we could have done. So yeah. All right, Cam, I got one for you. Okay. This is going to be an interesting question because I think, I'm excited about this draft class in this particular position. There will be 5 defensemen taken in the first 10 picks of the 2026 NHL Draft.
I could argue this either side. I'm going to argue it is believable. We know teams love to reach on centers and D. It's light on centers. We can feel pretty comfortable that Gavin McKenna is probably going to be among that top 10. We can feel pretty comfortable that Ivar Stenberg is going to be among that top 10 as forwards. Now it's like, okay, you've got Keaton Verhoff. We've got Carson Carrolls, Daxon Rudolph, Ryan Lynn. And then it's like, is it Chase Reed? Is it Villeneuve? Like one of those guys, could they sneak in? Could they push the envelope and knock a guy like a Mathis Preston out of the top 10? Or I guess who else would be in that spot? Like, I think it's doable in September. Yeah. I think it is believable.
I think it's believable too. And I think especially because of the lack of center depth in this draft at this point. If you were to ask many people to rank it, it'd be center D wing in terms of that, if it were to go that way. And it's why partially that the Gavin McKenna, is he for sure the number 1 pick? Like, yes, right now, if you were to ask everybody right now, yes. But because he's a wing and because we have all these big defensemen that have this, and also these tremendous puck moving defensemen, there's something for everybody in that group. So, I do think that we'll see Roobroeck and McKenna and Lawrence and Belchetz all in that, that top. And then, could some of these defensemen even push down Ivar Stenberg? Like that's the other thing. Like, could maybe it'd be a lot, but like 5'11" wing versus a 6'2" defenseman, you're starting to say, okay, well, which way am I going to go? So we'll see what happens here.
I've got one for you, and I just changed it so you have no preparation too, because it got my wheels turning.
This is good.
As we're talking about all these guys who could fit into the top 10, I'm counting numbers in my brain, being like, somebody's not going to make the cut here. Viggo Björck will slip outside of the top 10, and both of us love Viggo Björck, but that's the question in front of you today. He will slip out of the top 10.
We do, and I think it's a good question, because as we sit down and we start putting these together and you start looking at some of these players, I think not only is it believable, I think it's likely that he will not be a top 10 pick. I think it's likely he could slip past 15. Likely. Yeah, it's funny. It's likely that he could, maybe, like you kind of hedge a little bit there. I do think though, like it's not a guarantee that he's top 15. Let's think about the facts here, and it's the size. Obviously, the size is number one. The skating isn't at a level that allows you to really just wave off the size thing. It's fine. It's not bad. He's not slow. He's just not. He doesn't have that pop in his skating that I think can help a smaller player make it. He's still tenacious, but he still has a lot of strength to gain. You know, it'll be interesting to see kind of the split for him, how much he's playing U20, a level that he completely obliterated last year on points versus men in pro, where it is going to be more difficult for him to get the time and space to do the things that he does. It sounds like almost a guarantee that he'll be on the World Junior team, which is going to be a great opportunity for him to make that statement. But for me, him being like, you know, what he did last season is unprecedented. So that is that we cannot discount that. The hockey sense, the playmaking ability, the finishing ability, all of it is there. But when you think about the way that teams draft and the way that this draft board is shaping up with all those top end defensemen, it does push smaller wingers down. And you think about where did Victor Eklund go? You know, right? Like he went much later than I think any of us really anticipated he would. And I think a lot of it was because 5'11" wing. You know, it's just like you keep hearing that 5'11", and Vigo's even smaller. You know,
is he 5'9",
5'9" on a good
5'10"?
day? 5'9" on a good day, maybe.
Plays the middle.
So like the player a lot, and like I said, you and I both like the player. But yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. All right, we did it.
Okay, Cam, we're almost to the end here, and let's close it out strong. We've talked about him a lot. We're going to talk about him again. We're into you have to pick one. I'm going to give you one. You got one forward from the OHL that you're going to draft. Is it Ryan Roobroeck or is it Ethan Belchetz?
Gosh, I have to put my list in because we have our ranking meeting coming up here where we're going to put out our first board, and like the debates we've been having between these two, it's like it seems like it's split down the middle. I'm probably taking Roobroeck, even though I just went off and said that I think Belchetz is going to be the first one off the board. But I think if you're asking me today, who I'm picking, if I'm on the clock, I think I'm taking Roobroeck. I think I am. I think he's got more closer to special offensive skills that I can forgive that he's not a maniac physically, and that hopefully maybe he can light a bit of a fire, and as he matures, that dominance will grow into it a little bit. Whereas Belchetz, I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to be more unique with his skill and size and strength package and be just a load to handle. But I wonder if he's got that top end that Roobroeck has.
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair point. To me, the upside of Belchetz is tantalizing. That's the thing where I see. Now, I think Roobroeck's hockey sense is a separating factor between the two players. I think that is one thing where, you know, and anybody that knows me, I used to have a podcast that was called Talking Hockey Sense. All this, you know, like this, it's really important to me. The one thing though that I'll say is like there are. If it was me picking, it would be Roobroeck. If it was an NHL team picking and they're comparable, and you've got that little extra bit of bite from Belchetz, that is going to go a long way. Yeah. I don't think it's out of the question that he's a top 3 pick, Belchetz. No. I don't think it's. Yeah. I think it's. You know, you look at
that could happen.
If anybody stumbles, he's right there. Because he is a manimal, you know, like as a young player. Teams are going to do an incredible deep dive on him. They're going to tear him apart. They're going to build him back up. They're going to do all these different things. But at the end of the day, he's a 6'5" forward who can skate well enough, who has good skill, who will drop the gloves, who will lay the big body check, who will do those things. And they will say, that's a guy that's going to get us through. That's a guy that's going to get us through, and he's going to get us there, and he's going to get us through. And those are things that I think will matter. So Ethan Belchetz, I'm going to go with him on this one, mainly because like I said, I think the hockey sense is a very strong factor in this. And if Roobroeck adds a little bit, I'm not saying don't don't go change your identity as a player. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying just make sure you're always difficult to play against every time out, and no one will
Yeah.
touch you. You know,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I think they're both in a great spot. So, well, Cam, season's here, man. We're right there. What should we be looking at on elite prospects coming up as we get the season rolling here?
Yeah, finishing up our organizational prospect rankings there. So we're in the, I think we're pushing into the top 7 coming out this week and over the weekend. Like I mentioned, our first board is coming out. I've got a fun little piece coming out tomorrow with 10 trade targets to watch for this year. Some impact guys that could be on the move in the NHL. All sorts of good stuff. Like we're rolling. You guys should check out our social media stuff too. Doing some fun stuff over there on TikTok and IG, getting my acting chops in. Yeah, I gotta pull back from my high school drama days where I was performing on stage. Didn't do great there. Never asked me to sing, but they did. But yeah, I'm pulling digging deep for those things. So yeah, check us out on social media as well.
All right, as long as you don't sing, I'm going to be all right. I think I will check
I'll stay
those
away.
out. Yeah. As long as it's just acting. Well, folks, I've said it a lot here, and obviously, definitely go check all that stuff out. But hey, a nice little corollary, a nice little companion piece to your readings of Cam Robinson. How about over on FloHockey? Get that annual subscription. Sign up today. The annual subscription is the best value that we have. You pay one fee up front. It saves you basically 7 months worth of monthly fees. I think it really cannot be beaten. And this year, with the amount of stuff that we have on our platform, it is really, really key. Also, hey, QMJHL fans, we got bilingual customer support. We've got all these new things that we're rolling out to aid our fans in Quebec and our French language fans. So there's so many things happening at Flow. We're so excited. We're going to have some other announcements throughout this week and next about different things happening, free games of the week, other things that you can track, when top prospects will be playing. All that stuff is coming. So do not miss out on that. Boy, just a week away. So when we record next week, we'll already have a couple of junior games in the can, but we'll also talk a little bit about the college season. We'll talk about how training camps are shaping up. We'll talk about rookies in the NHL. There's all sorts of things coming our way. Cam, cannot wait to get the season rolling.
Should be a blast, buddy.
It's going to be a blast. And that is going to do it for this week's episode of Called Up the Prospects podcast. For my pal Cam Robinson, I am Chris Peters. We'll catch you next time.